So I'm Amanda from Commission Factory, and I'm about to introduce those for today. So Plastique will be hosting our webinar, and they'll be sharing some unique insights on the importance of online to offline, which is a strategy used by progressive merchants to connect with customers driving the mobile economy. Today, we're joined by Andrew Banks and David Anderson from Plastique, who will be hosting today's webinar. We're really excited to have them. So Andrew is a serial entrepreneur and continues to keep pace with our very diverse and increasingly technology-driven business marketplace. He's supporting aspiring startups and small businesses throughout personal appearances, mentoring sessions, and community links. David, on the other hand, has extensive experience in scaling B2C digital businesses from startup to some of Australia's most well-known brands. In recent years, David has led the charge to be the first business in Australia to implement Albert AI, which is the world's first autonomous AI marketing platform, and subsequently licensed the platform for Australia and New Zealand. Andrew is the chairman and David is the CEO of Plastique, a venture-backed startup that they've co-founded together. Plastique aims to bridge the gap between the analog and digital in the $278 billion local retail market, with aspirations to expand their offering globally in the future. So we're really excited to have them both here today. So without further delay, I will hand it over to the Plastique team.
Thanks for that, Amanda. We've got Andrew. Andrew, how you going there?
I'm good. I'm ready and rolling.
Okay, brilliant. We'll get going, guys. So just an agenda today, what we're going through. What is O2O? So as Amanda mentioned, online to offline, and an overview of online to offline in action, why retailers should be focusing on this, and the role that Plastique plays in the O2O evolution. Then we're just showing you some data and some samples we're doing with some progressive merchants that are already playing in this space. What is O2O? O2O, as Amanda's already said and I've said now, but it refers to online to offline, bringing together the digital and the physical shopping experience. Using digital marketing methods, progressive retailers can find potential customers online and offline, raise their awareness of products and services, and draw them to make purchases in store. It's really moved past the day and age where someone will walk into a store without doing their research on a product. It's a very connected world. O2O is a great way to bridge that, because the thing that is absolutely amazing in this space is retail is still such a big player. Even though online is growing tremendously, a lot of sales still occur in the retail world, and O2O gives a great way that merchants are able to engage with consumers in this space. So just an overview of O2O in action. A consumer is able to discover, work out, do their research, and find the best solution to something they're looking for online. And rather than just walking into the store and talking to a sales rep like they traditionally do, they can still use their smartphone to obviously get more information within there. But then they can engage with that merchant, whether it be through loyalty and offer or social media, but in the store. And that transaction carries through to when they've actually engaged, and they can still see what the whole consumer journey looks like from a merchant's perspective. So they know a consumer's come from offline into the store and bought, but they've initially indicated that they wanted to purchase, or they've showed their intent from online. And then finally they can receive their goods. These are all areas that traditionally would have been probably, I guess the best way to describe it, Andrew, is like a black hole from a merchant's perspective, but O2O really closes the gap on how this is working.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for years, businesses have been trying to silo bust inside businesses so that each part of the business talks to each other. In a way, this is one of the largest silos of all, because the smartphone is the new sales assistant, as you say. And it seems incredible to me that retailers don't avail themselves of much more data, recognizing that, like them, we're all shopping online and in store. So why shouldn't retailers have a much better view, a 360-degree view, which we'll come on to later?
Yeah. And I guess this is the number one reason why retailers need to focus on O2O. online's growing at wild speed. Everyone's seen Amazon come to the marketplace. Everyone knows there's a lot of attention online. But in Australia alone, retail still makes up 90% of all of the money that consumers spend. And it's actually not slowing down either. It's still growing. So it's obviously going through its trials and tribulations. Like anything, it has its challenges, but there is still so much potential there. And when you consider that 90% of all consumer spend in store or all spend happens in store, it just really illustrates that the merchants need to be able to interact with the consumers at this point here, because there's so much happening.
Well, plus another point, which I know we're going to get onto, the costs of running in-store operations is much higher for all sorts of obvious reasons. It's the physical universe, the premises, everything else. And it seems to me that not to collect data on your customer in that more expensive infrastructure compared to online as well is just a wasted opportunity. And we'll illustrate that in a moment.
Yeah, and I guess it's a good point that you brought up there, Andrew, but one of the other things that really needs to be focused on here is just because someone's gone in the store initially and not checked out, it doesn't mean that the transaction's lost, but O2O means that the retailers are able to still engage with them, engage what's going to happen post that sale, whereas before they would have walked into the retail store, they might have made the sale, they might not have made the sale, but they just didn't know. This closes the gap till the retailer can actually quantify that there has been a sale made.
Yeah, I was holding that up my sleeve. I was trying to surprise people, give them something at the end, but you're right. I mean, it's a relationship. And, the more you know about your customer, the deeper and more authentic that relationship can be. So as you say, that will lead to increased spend, and maybe not spend at the store moment, but on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just to highlight everything we're talking about with some numbers and statistics here, just the consumer habits and showing how they've changed. So 79% of smartphone owners are smartphone shoppers. 84% of these shoppers use their phone to help them when they're in the store. And that really goes back to the quote you made there, Andrew, about the smartphone being the new sales assistant. 15 minutes is the average time that smartphone users use in the store. So it's a lot more considered and they're spending a lot more time there. And where it starts to get really attractive from a merchant's perspective, 50% higher average order value from smartphone shoppers in health and beauty categories alone.
Wow, that's an amazing statistic. 50%.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Then you've got other categories like appliances, where you're looking at a 40% bump in the average order value. Again, it's a very big jump. They're not meaningless numbers here. They're quite substantial. And I think more important than all, 58% of all retail sales are going to be influenced by digital in 2023. So we definitely live in a digital economy these days.
And that's an important, subtle point. People think of online or in-store, but I think we're talking about in-store influenced by a digital decision. And that's really a grey area between the two zones, which doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely bridging that gap. I think the days of having your online and your offline sales siloed, it just doesn't work anyway. Like we both know as a consumer, when you walk into a store, you're the same person that transacts online. And it's just at the point in time now where merchants need to be able to adapt to consumers in that way. And I think consumers are starting to flock to the merchants who can do so.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so now we're up to the role of Plastique in the O2O evolution. What are your thoughts on this, Andrew?
Well, I think, we saw a gap, a hole in the market. We couldn't believe it. We went around and talked to all the pay platforms, the loyalty platforms, the retailers, and I guess we saw that there was this enormous opportunity to, provide a better, more seamless solution to customers who were loyal, and really to leverage those transactions. So that's really what brought Plastique about. We couldn't believe it. Amongst all these various platforms, no one was pulling it all together and creating a seamless experience for the consumer, but ultimately enabling the merchants to have more data. So, that's why we're here.
Yep, and that really takes us to who is Plastique. So for everyone who doesn't have the slide right in front of them now, Plastique is a revolutionary loyalty provider that leverages the monetary value of transactional data to reward consumers and enable merchants. And what that really means is we're able to take all the sales figures that might be anonymous, that you might not be able to make sense of in normal time or with your current infrastructure and data and environments. and we can actually create meaningful data of that. And I think to go back to what Andrew said there and show you how big the whole or the opportunity in this market is, the biggest loyalty program in the country has the best part of about 12 million people subscribe to it. And they're looking at a 40% or 47%, sorry, opt-in rate for people when they're actually shopping, identifying themselves as a loyalty consumer. So 53% of the biggest loyalty platform in the country aren't actually identifying themselves. And while there can be cheeky methods to try and identify them, by and large, these people go unidentified and unrewarded. So I think really working out how to close that gap and be able to provide infrastructure to businesses, both small and large, so they can compete with the biggest players in town is really what Plastique is about.
Yeah, that's good. I think show them some examples in the next slides, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we've got creating a step change, and what we mean with that, I think very similar, if we're going to illustrate this to something that people might be able to associate outside of this topic, really like IBM with the mainframe going towards the personal computer, which Windows and Microsoft brought to life. Retailer side data is high cost. It requires integration. There's limited data sets. People looking to play in this space are really limited to being able to identify that transactions running over a credit and debit, which has been good. And up until this point in time, there's been a big demand for that. But I think consumer habits have definitely changed. The amount of options that consumers have to pay with different methods these days has just skyrocketed. You've got Afterpay, you've got ZipPay, Klarna, everyone in those, as well as your traditional credit cards and debit cards. But I think the big pendulum moment for us at Plastique was we said, well, up until this point in time, since loyalty was created back in the 1800s with the British merchants, what if we were to turn it on its head and get the data from customers rather from merchants? What would that mean? And I think what it means from a merchant's perspective is there's low cost, absolutely no cost in some circumstances to be able to get up and running. One of the things that people just don't believe us about, but is really good, is there's absolutely no integration because you get all the data from the consumer. You don't need to have merchants integrating anything. And the most important thing of all is that you can get a holistic view of the customer, and it's completely agnostic. So the days of just being able to identify what a customer does in your shop and only on the transactions where they make it eligible to be able to track it based on them opting in, you're able to see everything they do. Are they spending money at my competitors? What's the AOV when they spend at my competitors? And a whole host of information that you just never would have been able to gather before.
And that's a key competitive advantage because it's fast. We're facing the consumer. We know even in the last 2 or 3 weeks how the consumers are reacting to this current situation and where their changes are. We're not in a B2B mode, we're directly B2C. And that's really, and as we'll say, the consumer gets rewarded with cashback, which is how we get the data. But clearly it's real time, it's fast. And that gives, I think, a great competitive advantage to be nimble as a retailer and pivot quickly with whether it's about price or SKUs or different opportunities that retailer might want. Collecting data from the retailer is all right, merchants all right, but usually most of the dashboards we've seen are 2, 3, 5 months old. And that's not necessarily very useful, especially in the fast changing environment we live in today.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Andrew. Being able to see that data in real time, knowing you've gone up, but has the market gone up? Have you gone down, but the market hasn't gotten down? Just being able to actually know where you sit. It's something that retailers haven't had the benefit of being able to do before, but it's definitely something it's an option now. And obviously the difference between us and competitors is the way we get the data and the method we get the data. And this is really how it conveys across. So Plastique can fuel growth through data linking and account linking. What that means from a retailer's perspective is we're able to build a 360-degree view of your customer, how they spend money online, how they spend money offline, and where they're spending it. Being able to access the unrivaled competitive insights that we've touched upon, being able to combine transactional data and then leverage that against real-time location data. So you can influence customers when they're at the point of transaction rather than just being able to get the data post-transaction. I think that's a very powerful thing. You might have a consumer base or you might have a big retail presence. Being able to engage with them when they're arriving to your store based on that location data and knowing that they've spent money with you before, rather than just pushing blank statements out to everyone. I think that gets very powerful. And then being able to leverage the payment data as well, being able to understand the different payment services that customers are using. Are your customers using different payment services when they shop at different merchants? Are different merchants offering different payment services that you guys don't offer? And understanding how that influences all your key metrics like your AOV, RFM, and understanding just from a competitive standpoint where you are. And then being able to discover who your key competitors are. It comes to a surprise to a lot of people when we start looking at this data, showing them who their true competitors are. And then at the same time, being able to identify who you can build strategic partnerships with from the data based off where your customers are spending money. Because I think in this day and age where marketing channels like Facebook and Google are getting more and more expensive, you've got to build strategic partnerships, and doing that through own channels and leveraging data is definitely the way to do so.
And just because we know sometimes people's eyes glaze over when they look at these sorts of things and think, is technology going to be a roadblock? Will I need a whole big spend in my IT department? Do I deal with firewalls? I think just remind everyone the technological side of integration in Plastique for this is very simple and very seamless, and really focused on mostly on the consumer signing up.
Yeah, absolutely. From a merchant's perspective, like you don't need to integrate anything. You can literally be on board running. There's obviously various degrees you can get going, but yeah, you can be running in up to a day. So quite straightforward from that perspective. Yeah. And here we've got some of the data that you're able to look at when you're leveraging the platform. So Plastique offers clients a world-first Phygital platform with unrivaled insights, and this is what we mean by it. This is obviously a player in the groceries industry that we're looking here, and what's absolutely astonishing here is from no merchant integration whatsoever, all the data is coming from the consumer. AOV, which is the key underlying metric that this organization uses to assess their performance, has normalized to what they use as an internal metric and measurement. And I think to be able to be in a position where you can have this form of insight and understanding of your customers and your competitors, it's just amazing to think what's possible. But then at the same time, I think, Andrew, you got to think, if I don't have this information, but other people do have this information, where do I sit as well?
Yeah, exactly. You only got half the story, and that is also very important if you're going to understand your customer and send them offers that they feel are authentic, as opposed to just being blasted with something because it suits the merchant.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing to highlight here, as it's mentioned on the slide, we're still running in a public beta right now. We launched in November, but we're already over $120 million worth of transactional data on the platform. So the data does grow very fast, and we're growing, and we can only see bigger and better things growing as the data sets, they increase with the user size.
Yeah, we'd expect that to be $500 million by middle of the year, obviously subject to current environment, but it's growing very quickly.
Yeah. And I guess jumping back now, because we spent a lot of time on the transactional data, but being able to leverage the smartphone, which we touched upon as well, really shows how holistic Plastique is when you're looking at it. Being able to interact with location services, knowing where people are and their behavior and what they're doing and when they're doing it. Our technology is able to track people within 8 foot of where they are. So for people at big retailers, we can generally work out what category or what section of the store they're in. For your smaller stores, we can understand where they were, being able to track the footfall, how long they were in the store, all of those details. And then being able to leverage everything else that the smartphones bring to us. So being able to use push notifications that could be triggered by entering or exiting locations based on purchasing. Being able to tailor this messaging based to a customer, reflective of their buying patterns, not just sending out generic messages to everyone, and then being able to, again, leverage more traditional tools like EDM placements and social media placements, just so you have the holistic view, bringing all of this in together. And this is an example of what we're doing with one of our O2O retailers, Bingley, which is quite exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been very happy with the initial response too.
And then we're looking at a slide for retailer growth powered by transactional data. And this just illustrates looking at the different locations. So from a retailer's perspective, being able to show all the different locations that you have, being able to identify that spend there, then being able to break that down further on a demographic basis, wanting to know the age of consumers spending at certain stores, the genders of consumers spending at certain stores, and then being able to leverage all the infrastructure we just touched on there with your geofencing, push messaging, and everything along those lines. And then, yeah, it just adds to the wealth of tools that your merchants already have.
So what's that right-hand retail brand showing us, Dave?
This is a complete breakdown of all the customers where they're spending both online and offline at the different
right.
stores.
So it's hard to see, but basically that's oh, I see. Those are locations. Yeah, right. So we're basically saying this is where they're spending it, and then we could also tell them on what kind of category they're spending it, and we can return that data pretty quickly to customers. They'll get an insight of where their customers are spending money on in competitive sectors too.
Yeah, absolutely. So this data is updating on a daily basis, and I think where it gets again very exciting is everyone's probably seen the bank statements or your online statements for your bank account showing up, where you've got all your Boolean transactions, where it's very hard to work out where you actually spent the money. We run a lot of AI ML on top of these transactional data, so we can break it down and know with certainty where you're actually shopping and provide that back and give merchants a bit better data than what they can sometimes get on their own.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, important to note as well, this data gets fed back into your CF platform. So if you're running here, anything you'd be able to understand with your online commission factory affiliates, your in-store sales data will feed back as well. So you'll be able to get that all in the same place.
And geofencing allows us to do things maybe with a council, Wallara Council, or with a shopping centre, or with a football stadium. So you name it, where we've got the opportunity to know that if a plastic customer comes into a proximity, what sort of offer should we send them and from which vendor and at what time?
Exactly. So we're getting towards the end now, guys. So in summary, imagine a world where consumers are regularly alerted to the best value via digital marketing methods, and merchants can make more profitable sales, capturing a greater share of the 275 billion online shopping opportunity. Transactional data is what makes this all possible. Plastique has created a client-side transactional data platform that provides an unrivaled 360-degree customer view. And this is how Plastique is looking to leverage this data and disrupt the retail industry.
In summary, I'd say there's not much downside for a merchant having access to this 360-degree view. And clearly the power is in store combined with the online piece. Yeah. Because obviously they drive each other and they help each other, hence the 360 view. O2O.
Okay, and that brings us towards the end of our presentation now, Reimagine the Phygital Experience. So Amanda's going to jump back on with me now, and we're going to see if we've got any questions from anyone.
I think first off, before we jump into questions, just huge thank you to David and Andrew for diving into online to offline marketing. We know it's a really kind of hot topic right now that's top of mind for many brands who have quite strong brick and mortar presence in addition to online. So we probably have some viewers who have some questions. So I will just kind of dive in here and see what questions we have. If you do have a question you have not submitted yet, we'd like to invite all those questions to come in. So the first one is, how long does it take to set something like this up? And do you see success in specific verticals, or can it work across all?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as Andrew's alluded to there, from a merchant's perspective, there's really no integration whatsoever. We're getting the data from the consumer. Merchants can be up and running within a day. It's just really giving them access to the dashboard. So there's really no downside whatsoever. There's only upside. And the thing that is fascinating to us is we're finding, while we knew from day one that there wouldn't be certain sectors that couldn't benefit from us and we wouldn't be vertical specific, we're finding some verticals like the sporting industry that are leveraging this data, which we didn't actually think of from a business model. And it's very exciting to see all the different industries getting across. Do you have anything more to add to that, Andrew?
Well, the only thing I'd say is, because we're all in a crazy world at the moment where everyone's working remotely, to the point of ease of integration, frankly, we could set up a retailer by having a Zoom conversation, understand it, and set it all up without a physical meeting. That may be something that's just worth mentioning in this current climate.
That's true.
Absolutely, very relevant. How do you tackle the issue of double dipping against other online and offline cashback providers? Well, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's a very good question. That's a problem with traditional card linking. That there's no central source if you're using a traditional card linking method, and someone could link up to like a MasterCard, for example, could be Amex, Visa, we'll name all of them. They could link them up to 6 or 7 different programs, and there's absolutely no way where you can attribute where the sale was derived from. Whereas Plastique doesn't use card linking, we use account linking methods where we go to the consumer directly. And what that means is we're able to see where the initial transaction was, how the transaction was made, and they're very interesting and exciting development that we're now doing as well is opening up what we're doing with other publishers out there. So Plastique for your O2O experience isn't just going to be limited to Plastique. This is more of a network that people will be able to jump across. And you'll have the same ability to be able to dedupe out as if you're using your traditional online methods.
Yeah.
So kind of on a similar, we had a very, very similar question come in actually. So how does attribution work with Plastique and other card linking providers? I think you kind of just started to touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the big thing to differentiate, I'm not going to get, yeah, exactly. Thanks for saving me there. I wasn't going to get that right after getting it wrong twice. When you're processing data through a card network, everything needs to run through a scheme. It could run by FPOS, MasterCard, myriad of ways, but when you're actually account linking back, you've got the source of truth, which is the account where the transaction actually hits. So regardless of the method where the transaction flows through, we actually see where it comes through as the source of truth. And that's where the merchants are starting to understand now that they can leverage Plastique's infrastructure to build that 360-degree customer view, and then be able to partner with other people outside of Plastique alone to be able to leverage and bring that into from an infrastructure and network point of view.
Okay, this next question is quite relevant today, I believe. What do you recommend retailers could do now to address current challenges faced by coronavirus?
What's your thoughts on this one, Andrew?
Sorry, just repeat that. I was just, somebody was asking me a question.
We're all getting all the questions. What do you recommend retailers could do to now address the current challenges faced by coronavirus?
Look, I mean, I'm not going to, I am no expert on health crises or anything else. I have to say, as the oldest person in the room, this is a very unique situation, and we have what the economists call a collapse in demand because people are, concerned about the health crisis. It's clearly got to pass because it will. And I was very encouraged by our Queensland research teams that are starting human trials today. But the bottom line is, I think, first of all, stepping back, you have to fill the vacuum. You have to get on. This is an opportunity. Clearly, people have to still shop and buy things. A lot of people are working at home. All of us are going to spend much more time online in the next month than we've probably ever done in our lives. So here's an opportunity to encourage a relationship with customers that's online, but that will ultimately feed back into the store traffic and the total relationship. So I feel, there's no real upfront cost, Dave, for a merchant to get involved in this. It's really something that, you sort of, if you like, think of it as pay as you go in terms of, as you get customers. So what's the downside? And I'd say generally, here's an opportunity to do some things that maybe a lot of merchants didn't have time to do when they were, running a store network and everything in their normal life was going on.
Yeah. I guess that's a beauty of a performance channel.
Yeah.
Try it out.
No, I can completely agree. And like you said, like now the challenges might just give people a little bit more opportunity to explore things that probably weren't on the radar a little bit a couple months ago.
Absolutely. Next question is this, I believe this referring to
Plastique.
Yeah, I'm assuming the Plastique platform, to replace my current analytical platform, for example, Google Analytics, or does it integrate or augment into what I currently have?
Yeah, good question. We get this one a lot. So Google Analytics, that's not going anywhere, and that's definitely going to stay. Plastic is another tool that will supplement all of the tools that you're already using. How you integrate the data and the insights in or augment it around what you're currently doing, that's on a use case by use case basis, but it's definitely another tool that will supplement the existing resources that you've got.
But Google Analytics won't give you an analysis of the demography and the other profile of the customers that have actually spent real money in real stores by postcode and by category to the same level. So Plastique isn't, it's a different set of data, and I would say far more specific to a merchant's needs in many ways.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right there. So I think one of the good things to touch upon is Plastique will bring a lot of the physical components back to Google Analytics, which you'd be able to leverage from a digital environment. So it's very good.
Yeah.
The next question is, I've had customers mention that the Plastique names brings about negative images as they move towards greener shopping choices. Oh, plastic, I get it.
Yeah.
Making them think about plastic. Have you seen very green focused brands hesitant to engage with you guys based on this? And does the brand name, is it seen to be hugely important positioning tool?
This is the first, so no, we haven't, but yeah, it's a very interesting point. I guess the key thing to bring up here, the name Plastique is a play on the word plastic in terms of the old currency, like put it on the plastic, as far as a credit card or debit card would be concerned. Plastique is a play on that. So we're definitely not pro-plastic in any way whatsoever.
That's good.
But yeah, very.
But also, I think, Dave, my feeling is that, we're a platform in a way, and our positioning is for our customers. So the brands that really step out, the customers, the feedback we've had is they go onto Plastique to look at the brands, our customers, and that's really the brand that they resonate and make a decision of whether they're going to buy or not. They're not going to buy. There's no negative. We've never had a negative feedback about, well, you're called something that reminds me of something that's not recyclable. So I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Great. Can we see reporting in your can we see the reporting in your dashboard in the Commission Factory platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So any of the data that you'd be used to be getting from an online perspective, your sales volume, everything like that definitely flows through into the Commission Factory dashboard. So that's definitely in the same space that you're used to seeing that data there.
All right, unless we have any more questions, I think we will wrap things up for today. So first off, just want to say a huge thank you to the whole team at Plastique who made today possible, in particular, Andrew and David. So thank you guys so much for the insights that you've shared with us today. If any of our viewers have any questions, feel free to email marketing@commissionfactory.com or chat with your Commission Factory account managers for any questions you might have about Plastique or about the online to offline space, and we can help you guys out. Now, I just also wanted to thank all of our viewers for joining us today. And before we go, we'll be flicking it over to Andrew for some final remarks.
Okay, well, I mean, we are living in some crazy times, and I guess that a lot of people are distracted and probably concerned, and I understand that. But my comment would be, having gone through a few of these ups and downs in my life before, which is worry about what you can control, and certainly understand that at the moment there's a unique opportunity for the online experience, because I've never lived through a time when a bunch of people around the world, billions of us, have been told to work from home, live from home, shop from home. So the online momentum is amazing. I think it will actually change the environment forever when we come out of this, in favor of a lot of online experiences, but still complementing it. And the third point is, here's an amazing opportunity to fill the vacuum. So I would encourage you, whether you're using Plastique or not, to promote. Everyone, may be waiting for the recovery or putting things off. I would say to you, as a businessman, this is the opportunity to fill the vacuum and go for it, all through the window of things that you can control. And in our humble opinion, having more data and a 360-degree view of your customer has got to be one of the things that may get us through these challenging few months. All the best to you, and be safe.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.